On the morning of November 4th, 1791, the quiet woods near the Wabash River in the Ohio Territory erupted in chaos. In just a few hours, a force of Native American warriors, led by Little Turtle and Blue Jacket, delivered one of the most devastating blows in U.S. military history. By the day's end, nearly 900 American soldiers lay dead or wounded, a staggering loss that shocked the young nation and reshaped its approach to frontier warfare. This was the Battle of the Wabash, also known as St. Clair's defeat. It remains the worst loss the U.S. Army has ever suffered in proportion to the size of its force. But this battle was more than just a military disaster. It was a turning point in the struggle for control of the Northwest Territory, a conflict rooted in competing visions of land, power, and survival. To understand this tragedy, we must step back to the late 18th century. The United States, barely a decade old, was eager to expand westward. The Northwest Territory, rich in resources, was seen as vital to the nation's growth. But this land was not empty. It was home to Native American tribes like the Shawnee, Miami, and Delaware, who were determined to defend their ancestral homes. The U.S. government, led by President George Washington, sought to secure the region through a combination of treaties and military force. But this approach ignored the deep connections Native tribes had to their land and their resolve to resist. The stage was set for a clash that would change the course of history. In this video, we'll explore the events leading up to the Battle of the Wabash, the key figures involved, and the decisions that led to such a catastrophic loss. We'll also examine the aftermath and the lessons learned from this tragic chapter in American history. The U.S. government, however, saw the territory as essential for its growth. Settlers were eager to move west, and the government sought to establish control through a combination of diplomacy and force. Treaties like the Treaty of Fort Harmar, 1789, attempted to formalize land cessions, but many Native leaders rejected these agreements, viewing them as unfair and illegitimate. Tensions escalated in 1790 when a U.S. force led by General Josiah Harmer suffered a humiliating defeat at the hands of Native warriors. This victory, known as Harmer's defeat, emboldened the tribes and exposed the weaknesses of the U.S. military. In response, President Washington appointed Arthur St. Clair, the governor of the Northwest Territory, to lead a new expedition. St. Clair, a veteran of the Revolutionary War, was tasked with building a series of forts to secure the region and assert American authority. But his campaign was plagued by problems from the start. His force, a mix of regular soldiers and untrained militia, was poorly equipped and unprepared for the challenges of frontier warfare. Supply shortages, harsh weather, and low morale further weakened the army. Meanwhile, Native leaders like Little Turtle of the Miami and Blue Jacket of the Shawnee were uniting their tribes into a powerful alliance known as the Western Confederacy. They were determined to protect their land and way of life, and they understood the terrain far better than their American counterparts. As St. Clair's army marched deeper into the Ohio Territory, the stage was set for a confrontation. The decisions made in the weeks leading up to the battle, both by American leaders and Native commanders, would have far-reaching consequences. By October 1791, St. Clair's army was in trouble. The soldiers, exhausted and underfed, were struggling to make progress through the dense forests and rugged terrain. Native scouts closely monitored their movements, relaying information to Little Turtle and Blue Jacket, who prepared their forces for a decisive strike. St. Clair, despite warnings from his officers, pressed forward. His decision to camp near the Wabash River on November 3 was a critical mistake. The site, chosen for its proximity to water, was poorly defended. The camp was disorganized, with little thought given to fortifications or defensive positions. At dawn on November 4, the native forces launched their attack. The assault was swift and brutal. Warriors emerged from the surrounding woods, catching the Americans completely off guard. The militia, positioned on the outskirts of the camp, quickly broke under the onslaught, fleeing in panic and leaving the regular soldiers exposed. St. Clair, suffering from gout and unable to mount a horse, struggled to maintain control. His officers tried to rally the troops, but the chaos was overwhelming. The native warriors, skilled in guerrilla tactics, targeted officers and artillery crews, further disorganizing the American forces. Despite the dire situation, St. Clair ordered a desperate counterattack. This decision, while brave, only added to the carnage. The native forces, disciplined and relentless, pressed their advantage, cutting down soldiers as they tried to escape. By the time the fighting ended, nearly 900 American soldiers lay dead or wounded, a staggering loss that would send shockwaves through the young nation. The Battle of the Wabash was a disaster for the U.S. Army. The native forces, led by Little Turtle and Blue Jacket, had achieved a stunning victory, proving that their resistance could not be easily crushed. The battle strengthened the Western Confederacy and forced the U.S. government to rethink its approach to the Northwest Territory. For the United States, the defeat was a humiliating blow. President Washington, furious at the loss, demanded answers. St. Clair, though he retained his position as governor, faced intense criticism and scrutiny. A congressional investigation was launched, but St. Clair was ultimately absolved of blame, as the failures were seen as systemic rather than the fault of a single individual. The defeat forced the U.S. government to reevaluate its military strategy. Recognizing the need for a stronger, more disciplined force, Washington appointed General Anthony Wayne to lead a new campaign. Wayne spent years training and preparing his troops, learning from the mistakes of St. Clair's expedition. This preparation would eventually lead to the decisive American victory at the Battle of Fallen Timbers in 1794, which marked a turning point in the struggle for control of the region. The Battle of the Wabash also had broader implications for U.S. policy toward Native Americans. The defeat highlighted the limitations of military force and the importance of diplomacy. In the years that followed, the U.S. government sought to negotiate treaties with Native tribes, though these agreements were often fraught with tension and mistrust. The immediate aftermath of the Battle of the Wabash was a scene of devastation. The battlefield, littered with the bodies of nearly 900 American soldiers, was a grim reminder of the cost of the conflict. Survivors, many of them wounded and traumatized, straggled back to Fort Washington, carrying with them stories of horror and loss. For the native forces, the victory was a moment of triumph. Little Turtle and Blue Jacket had achieved a stunning success, proving that their resistance could not be easily crushed. However, the victory also came at a cost. The native forces, though victorious, had suffered casualties and expended valuable resources. In the United States, the reaction to the defeat was one of outrage and disbelief. President Washington, upon hearing the news, reportedly exclaimed, "Hell itself could not have produced a worse defeat." The loss was a severe blow to American pride and exposed the weaknesses of the young nation's military. This battle was not just a military defeat, it was a human tragedy. The lives lost on the banks of the Wabash River represented families torn apart, dreams cut short, and a nation forced to confront the high cost of its ambitions. For the Native American tribes, the victory was a testament to their resilience and determination to defend their land and way of life. Yet, It also foreshadowed the relentless pressure they would continue to face as the United States pushed westward. The lessons of the Battle of the Wabash reverberated far beyond the battlefield. It also underscored the importance of understanding and respecting the complexities of the land and its people, a lesson that remains relevant today. As we reflect on this chapter of history, we are reminded of the enduring impact of decisions made in moments of conflict. The Battle of the Wabash is not just a story of loss and defeat, it is a story of resilience, adaptation, and the enduring struggle for justice and survival. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. If you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What lessons do you think we can learn from the Battle of the Wabash? Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep remembering the stories that define us.